All right, let's dive into a really big move coming out of one of India's economic powerhouses, Maharashtra. They've just rolled out a brand new policy with a very clear goal to get global businesses to build their next major hub right there. So what's on the table? Let's break it down. I want to start by asking any business leader watching this a simple question. What if a government actually offered to help pay for your next global office? To really subsidize the setup and the day-to-day costs. Because that's pretty much exactly what this new policy is all about. It's a direct pitch to your bottom line.
First up, just so we're all on the same page, when we talk about a Global Capability Center, or a GCC, we're not talking about your basic call center. No, this is a company's own in-house strategic hub. It's where the high-value work happens. Think R&D, core engineering, or advanced financial services, all run from a central spot.
So how is Maharashtra actually rolling out the welcome mat? Well, the best way to look at this policy isn't as some dry government document. Think of it more like a formal, strategic invitation sent out to the world's top companies. The whole idea here is actually pretty simple. Create a system that just slashes the cost of getting started and dramatically lowers the daily expenses for companies setting up these high-value GCCs. They're really trying to attract the whole spectrum, from the biggest Fortune 500s to the next unicorn in tech.
Okay. This leads us to the million-dollar question for any executive thinking about this. So, do we actually qualify? Well, the policy lays out the criteria very, very clearly. Let's get into it.
First thing you have to know is that geography really matters here. The state is basically split into two incentive zones. You've got Zone I, which is the big metro areas, Mumbai and Pune. And then you have Zone 2, which is, well, everywhere else. And as you're about to see, the government is offering much sweeter deals for companies that choose Zone 2, trying to spread that development across the entire state.
Now, what's really smart about the setup is the flexibility. They've created two different ways to qualify. You can either hit the target for your fixed capital investment, that's your FCI, or you can hit the target for hiring. This really opens the door for different kinds of businesses, whether you're capital heavy or a massive employer, from a small 100-person office to an ultra-mega campus with over 1,000 people. Of course, there are some key conditions you have to meet. You get 2 years to hit your hiring numbers, and then you have to keep those employment levels steady every month. And for any existing GCCs out there thinking of expanding, you'll need to bump up both your investment and your team size by 25% to get in on these new incentives.
All right, let's get to the main event, the part everyone's been waiting for, the money. This is where the policy stops being just an idea and starts having a direct, tangible impact on your company's bottom line.
So right out of the gate, you have to make a big strategic choice. You can go for a capital subsidy or rental assistance, but you can only pick one. The capital subsidy is basically a one-time cash grant based on what you spend on equipment. The rental assistance, on the other hand, is a 5-year program to help cover your lease, which lowers your operating costs over the long run.
And if you're wondering just how serious they are, just look at this number, 100 crore rupees. That's about 12 million US dollars. That is the absolute maximum capital subsidy available for just one mega-sized GCC. The scale of support here is just massive.
And you can see right here how that support just climbs. The subsidy caps get bigger as your operation gets bigger. It starts at 10 crore for a small GCC and goes all the way up to that huge 100 crore ceiling for a mega project.
Okay, next up is the payroll subsidy. And this one is aimed squarely at helping you attract and retain top-tier talent. For any employee earning over 1 lakh rupees a month, the government will actually reimburse a big chunk of that salary. You get 40% back in Zone I, but check this out. You get a much more generous 50% back in Zone 2. And on top of all that, there's a 10% bonus for hitting your diversity hiring goals.
So what does that actually look like in real terms? Well, a company in Zone 2 that also hits its diversity targets could get back up to 60,000 rupees per employee every single month. That is a direct and pretty incredible reduction in what is usually your biggest operational cost, high-skilled salaries.
And there's one more major financial kicker. But you gotta notice the fine print here. It's for units in Zone 2 only. If you decide to set up shop outside of the big metro areas, you can also get up to a 5% subsidy on the interest you pay on your business loans, which again, just lowers the cost of your capital.
But this policy isn't just about throwing cash at companies. It's also designed to remove a lot of the friction to make it fundamentally easier and faster to just get things done. So let's look at those operational advantages. The government is basically promising to slash through all the red tape. You can self-certify to get the ball rolling, you get put in the fast lane for getting land and utilities, and all your approvals get funneled through what they're calling a single window clearance system. The whole goal is to increase your speed to market.
And it gets even better. GCCs also get to piggyback on all the benefits of the state's existing IT policy. So this means you get a whole second layer of perks. Things like getting out of paying stamp duty, getting extra floor space for your buildings, and even breaks on your property taxes.
Now this is a really critical one. All of these GCCs are granted industry status. What that means in the real world is you get official permission to operate around the clock 365 days a year. And that's an absolute non-negotiable for any center that's serving global teams in different time zones.
And finally, the policy makes some very concrete promises, guaranteeing the things that can literally bring a business to a grinding halt. We're talking about an assured, uninterrupted, 24/7 supply of both power and water, reserved plots of land in industrial parks, and more flexible labor laws to make running night shifts easier. They are actively de-risking the entire venture for you.
So after going through all the financial perks and the operational advantages, what's the final verdict? What should a global decision maker really take away from all of this?
When you boil it all down, it really comes down to 4 massive advantages. First, you get deep cost reductions on your biggest ticket items. Second, you get operational velocity. It gets you up and running way faster. Third, there's real strategic flexibility in where you set up and which incentives you choose. And fourth, it's a de-risked operation with guaranteed infrastructure.
Look, this is genuinely one of the most aggressive and attractive incentive packages we've seen from any government anywhere. It's a massive statement of intent. So the big question now is, will this be the policy that actually cements Maharashtra status as the world's next great capital for global capability centers? That's what everyone's going to be watching. Thanks for joining me.